Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Welcome to the new Helmet to Helmet show with my new guest host, David May. Some of you may know this guy. He is a Tennessee Volunteers guy, and we figured we're going to give you a little preview here of what's going on over on Fan Pride and what's going on with howardsrock.net and, of course, volunteerroadshow.com, because we have a lot of content over there, but we figure we'll put a weekly show on here for everybody to listen to on YouTube. Now, unfortunately, today we don't have video, so obviously you're looking at a video screen without our faces on there. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but in the coming weeks this will be an actual video, and you'll also be able to find it on I'm assuming iTunes and Spotify and those sort of places. So, without further ado, before we get into this weekly conversation here, I want to go ahead and welcome and thank my friend David May for joining us. How you doing, David?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm amazing and fantastic, but you already knew that.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to get this thing going, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Talk some top 25 college football with you, so I'm ready.
Yeah, awesome. So what we've decided to do, David and I, is sort of pick the most interesting games of the coming week and talk a little bit about those teams and those matchups. And maybe if there's something interesting that happened on the previous Saturday, we'll rehash something that happened last week. So we'll start with that, right? So last week we had two epic games, the two biggest games of the week. One of them was not meant to be the biggest game of the week, but it ended up being that way. And that was the massive upset down there in Athens, Georgia, where South Carolina went in there and took Georgia to double overtime. And then, of course, what's the kid's name? Rodrigo Blankenship, right? The kicker for Georgia.
That's it, yep.
Yeah, he misses a short field goal in double overtime to give the Gamecocks the win down there between the hedges. I don't know a whole lot to say about this game other than I'm not surprised. I know everyone else seems surprised because Georgia was such a big-time favorite, and South Carolina was unranked, and South Carolina has some bad losses this year. But honestly, I never get too high on a team. I never get too low on a team. This happens. This happens every single week in college football where you see a team that has no business beating a team actually doing that. And that's what we saw happen there. Now, what all that really does is shorten the leash for Georgia. They can't afford to lose another game now if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. But I wouldn't overreact to this too much. I think that, in a way, this may end up being a good thing for Georgia. It may, get them to play with a little bit more fire in these coming weeks. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about that game surprised me, and it's not that South Carolina won the game. It's South Carolina won that game with their third-string quarterback in the game, man. I mean, Ryan Helinski gets hurt. DeCarrion Joyner comes in, and he finishes that game off and wins that game in double overtime for the Gamecocks. So, I mean, it was a big win for Will Muschamp. It seems like with Will Muschamp, he always has those games that he's not supposed to win, that he does come through and win. But he also has those games that, he's supposed to win, but they lose. So, and you can say the same thing about Kirby Smart. I mean, Georgia, he's starting off the same way Mark Richt did. And he hasn't proved to be any better than Mark Richt was. They say that Mark Richt didn't make get a playoff win or make the national championship game, but I mean there was no playoff. So I guarantee you that if there was a playoff, Mark Richt would have won at least one game and been in the national championship one of those years. So yeah. Just I mean looking back at it, like you said, is it a surprise? Not really, but I am surprised that South Carolina's third-string quarterback came in and finished that out for him. That's big for him, man.
Yeah, see, this is what I say is because with Clemson having that close game against North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, one of the reasons I think this is so funny is because Georgia fans, they were coming barking out of the woodwork saying how they would beat Clemson on a neutral field without a problem and this and that, and then they go and lose to South Carolina, right? Yeah. But I mean, here's what the difference between schools like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and teams like Georgia, who are very talented, and they're recruiting in the top 5 for the past 3 years, right? Or even in the top 3, right. Is that great teams win these kinds of games because everybody's going to get challenged by a lesser opponent at some point. It's always going to happen. You can't dominate everybody every game every year. It just doesn't work that way. But Clemson finds a way to win those close games, right? Alabama finds a way to win those close games, like they've done with Georgia over the past couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
And so, that's the difference between a good team and a great team. So Georgia's a very good team, but they, when they get their backs up against the wall, they've proven over the course of several years now to blow it. And a lot of it is not the player's fault. I mean, there's plenty of blame to go around, I'm sure, but this is all coaching. And a lot of these are very bad in-game coaching decisions that they're making and giving these games away, basically. So, how much longer will this go on in Georgia? You can't fire a guy who's winning the East more times than he's losing it. You can't fire a guy who's made the college football playoff and is winning 10 or 11 games a year, right? Or can you?
Right. No, you can't. And I think the answer here is you got to keep Kirby Smart, and you just got to see where it goes. I mean, you look at Clemson and Dabo. I mean, how long did it take for them to win a national championship?
Exactly.
Bama's a little bit different with Nick Saban. He won it in his second year. But, after that, they did blow some games that they weren't supposed to lose. So I think that comes with time and consistency in a program. They did a really good job, and I'm not a Georgia fan by any means. They did a really good job bringing in Kirby Smart and getting those, recruiting classes in to set themselves up for success. And I don't see it going anywhere. They're going to be back. And, I mean, just by SEC bias, they could still make the playoffs at the end of the year if they finish strong. So we'll see.
Yeah. And like you said, it took Dabo a long time to get things turned around. Now, I will say this, though. I think that Clemson's program at that time was in a little bit worse shape than Georgia's was.
Oh, for sure, man. Absolutely.
But this is a perfect transition into the next game we're going to talk about, because this is what I think that Kirby Smart needs to learn from somebody, and that somebody is Ed Orgeron, because Ed Orgeron took over, an archaic offense that Les Miles left behind, right? And he's gone through 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years because he's trying to find that one that can give him that explosive offense like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State.
Right.
And now he's got his offense. Now look at LSU. So that's what Kirby Smart, he needs to take a little bit of advice from Ed Orgeron and do the same thing. He needs to find an offense.
Yeah, I have a very good feeling James Coley will not be the offensive coordinator at Georgia next year. So
I would agree with that.
So I don't know, man. We'll see. But again, with LSU, I think the key there with LSU is Joe Burrow. So they finally got their quarterback, and they've got a good offensive coordinator, and look what they're doing,
Yeah, they have better skilled players too. The problem in recruiting is it's hard to get a 5-star wide receiver to come to Georgia because they don't pass the ball. And if they do pass the ball, it's a 2-yard pass.
All right.
So if you have aspirations of going in the NFL, you want to go to somewhere where you're going to catch a lot of balls. You're going to catch a lot of big balls. Mm-hmm. And Georgia's not that place. So it's a trickle-down effect. I mean, they got to change their entire philosophy to get the guys in there that can do it. And, they have the name brand to do it, and they're obviously recruiting well at every other position. But I don't think there's a single starter with maybe one. I don't know. But most of the entire wide receiver core for Georgia could not start at any other school that's in the top 5 right now. Right.
Yeah. So. And I'll say one thing about that. I agree with you when you say that a 5-star wide receiver is not going to go to a school that, runs the ball all the time. But those elite coaches, man, they pull those guys in regardless. Look at Nick Saban. Those kids just they fall in love with the program, and they don't care if you run the ball, because Bama used to run the ball all the time, man, and they still had Julio Jones, all these guys that came in and made big plays at wide receiver for them. So I think it's more of a how good are you in recruiting?
Yeah. I could see that. So speaking of LSU, speaking of Ed Orgeron and that high-flying offense, they had their big game with Florida this last week down in Tiger Stadium. I don't call it Death Valley. I call it Tiger Stadium because the real Death Valley is in Clemson, South Carolina. But anyway, it was a great game, and LSU lived up to the hype. Their offense is if somebody would have asked you exactly a year ago, back in mid-October of 2018, that 6 games after halfway through the regular season in 2019, that LSU would have the best offense in America, would you have believed it?
No, absolutely not.
No, me either. I mean, better than Oklahoma, better than Ohio State, better than Clemson, better than Alabama. I mean, stat-wise anyway. I mean, they're scoring more points, they're putting up more yards. Joe Burrow's having a Heisman type year so far, so it's pretty amazing what just a change of philosophy and change an offensive coordinator can really do for an offense. So that's what we saw on Saturday.
Right, yeah. Steve Ensminger has done a fantastic job with the offense, man. And I say it again. They're lucky that Joe Burrow made the improvements that he did, man. Because I mean, just the difference that kid has made in one off season. He's gone from being like, bottom of the SEC quarterback, in my opinion, to the best quarterback in the SEC. And right now he's a Heisman favorite for a lot of people. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if Steve Ensminger is a quarterback guru or what it is, but man, they turn things around quick down there. So,
well, I think the magic sauce there was hiring Joe Brady from the Saints. They hired him as an analyst, and he's the one they brought in there to revamp the passing game. So you see a lot of concepts they're using that has been being used in the Saints offense over the past couple of seasons. And he probably won't be there long because he's such a hot commodity right now.
Right.
He'll probably end up getting an offensive coordinator job. I mean, hell, he might get an offensive coordinator position at LSU just to try to keep him there. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with him. But,
yeah.
But the criticism going into this game was LSU hadn't, the same old thing. LSU hadn't played any good defenses this year. That's why they're putting up all this these numbers and scoring all these touchdowns. Well, we saw them go up against, I'd say, one of the top 5 defenses in America with Florida, and they waxed them. So I think we can go ahead and say that LSU is a legit title contender at this point.
Yeah, definitely agree on that.
Yeah. All right, so. Clemson beat up on Louisville. Alabama beat up on Texas A&M, right? So, Ohio State had an off week, I think. So that was the top 5 teams or whatever, top 5 games last week. But so this week we have the overrated Jim Harbaugh's traveling to Penn State, Happy Valley, to play in the whiteout, which is one of the most exciting and visually stunning places to see a game on TV, whether you're there on TV in college football every year when they have that whiteout at Penn State. I'm actually a little bit surprised that, because Penn State looks really good this year, and Michigan is sort of like a roller coaster. They're up one week, they're down one week, they're up one week. I mean, the Michigan fans right now are all saying that they think that they're finally got things on track. Well, I don't believe it until I see it. I've been sold that bag of goods, a bag of lies even, for the past couple of seasons. So I'm at the point with them now where I don't believe anything until I see it. So I was actually surprised to see that Michigan, of course they're an underdog on the road, but it's only 7.5 points. And I would have thought it would have been more. I think Penn State's going to win this game pretty handily. I'd say by maybe 3 touchdowns. So how do you feel about it?
This is a hard one to pick for me. James Franklin, it seems like he blows one big game every year. And, I mean, it like you said, it's the whiteout. It's a big rivalry game. I'm with you on the Jim Harbaugh take. He's completely just overrated. I don't think he's going to be there next year. So I'd probably say that this game is a lot closer than people think. And I'd probably take the under on 7. And I could honestly see Michigan winning this game.
Now that's a hot take there.
Yeah.
Again, anything can happen in college football. We see it every week. So would I be surprised? No, but I'll tell you what. I don't know. I think I might, if I could scrounge up some of my son's money out of his piggy bank, I might put some money on that game and just bet on Penn State.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, the other thing you said there is you think that if Michigan kind of craps the bed this year, you think Jim Harbaugh won't be there next year. I actually disagree. I think he'll be there for at least one more year, even if they're bad this year, because I don't know, for some reason the fans for Michigan, they really love him, despite the fact that he's 5 years in now and doesn't really have that good of a record, especially against highly ranked teams or teams in his own division, nonetheless. Mm-hmm. But first of all, I think his buyout is probably a little bit too high for them to justify. And second of all, for some reason, they love him. And I don't know. It's sort of like, I don't know, maybe like Les Miles stayed a couple years too long before they fired him. And I think you might see the same thing end up happening with Harbaugh.
You could. You never know. But, man, he's screwing things up there, man. I mean, you look at recruiting. Tennessee's beating Michigan out for players. And, I mean, and not just one player. We've taken 3 players from Michigan this past year. So the recruits see it. The recruits' parents see it. So it's more than just the fans. And you got to think, man, that athletic director up there, he's looking for his job too. So, looking out for himself there. So, I mean, he loses one more game. Yeah, he'll probably be there next year. But he drops 2 or 3 more, man. I think you could see a new head coach up at Michigan.
Yeah, I actually was talking about this with a friend the other day, and we were kind of going back and forth. And I said, you know what? I think he might actually end up be more likely to leave Michigan to go back to the NFL than him get fired, which is another possibility.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be a mutual parting of ways there. And if somebody offers him a job in the NFL, I'm sure he would probably take it to get himself out of that situation and to save his name. So
yeah, if he goes on to somehow put together an 8 or 9 win season this year, that'll be enough to keep him around for another year or two. You know what I mean?
Right. Just a weird dude, man.
Yeah, he's definitely a weird dude.
He creeps me out.
Yeah, he's a weird guy for sure. All right, so next on the list we have. I think this is an interesting game for a couple of reasons. I mean, Vanderbilt they're really bad. I mean, they've had a couple of pretty good seasons, for Vanderbilt standards over the past couple of years. They're just really bad this year. I mean, they're losing to everybody. Not just normal Vandy standards. They're losing to, non-Power 5 teams, and it's just a mess. Missouri, on the other hand, is a 21.5-point favorite in this game against Vanderbilt. Now, of course, Missouri's sort of flying under the radar. They're not getting a whole lot of national attention because of that first week 1 game they lost to Wyoming, which is kind of a head scratcher. But since then, they've been really good. Kelly Bryant's playing really good. Their defense, I heard today on the radio, I had to rewind it and listen to it again. In total defensive statistics, Missouri is number 1 in the entire SEC. In total defense. So that's I mean, their offense is clicking right now. Their defense is playing lights out. They're really a tough out for anybody that they play. Tennessee hasn't played them yet, have they? Or have they?
Tennessee hasn't played Missouri yet?
Yeah, I'm asking.
No, they have not.
Okay, I didn't think so. So right now, I mean, they're undefeated in the SEC. As far as their conference record, their only loss is a head scratcher. Week 1, and now, I mean, when's the last time you saw Missouri be a 21.5-point favorite against anybody in the SEC?
Right. Hey, man, Missouri's leading the SEC East right now, so they're on top right now. So
yeah,
this game's not going to be close. I'm taking Missouri by at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Vandy, and I'm not just saying this because I hate Vandy, which I do. But Vandy, I think they're one of the worst, if not the worst, Power 5 team in the country right now. Just the way they got embarrassed at home by UNLV, man, 34-10, and it didn't look that close. I mean, Derek Mason's on his way out. Mm-hmm. There's no saving his job. I think maybe if he beats Tennessee, he might get another year, but I'm not being biased by saying this, but I don't think Vandy's got Tennessee's number this year. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I think Tennessee will win. But so before the season started, I picked Missouri. I did a preview video for Missouri's season, and I picked Missouri after 8 weeks to be 8-0, which I look like a real idiot after week 1 when they lost to Wyoming. But since then, I'm starting to look better now. So there's a real good chance. I mean, they have, they always hear about the tough schedules in the SEC. They had one of the easier schedules in the SEC this year because out of the West they drew, I think it was Arkansas and Ole Miss, who are both down right now. So, yeah. So they have a very manageable schedule. I mean, obviously, no game in the they still have to play Florida, who's good. They still have to play Georgia, who's good. Like you said, I mean, Tennessee could give them a hard time, I think, too. But outside of Florida and Georgia, Missouri's probably going to be favored in every game they play this year, which is pretty unbelievable. So right. I think you're right. I think that they'll win by 4 touchdowns. I agree with you.
Yep. It's the key to Missouri season is Kelly Bryant has to stay healthy. Their defense is playing well enough to cover up some things, but if Kelly Bryant gets hurt again, because he had his concussion issue or whatever it was a couple weeks ago, if he gets hurt again, they're going to start dropping games and they're going to be done for the season. So.
Yeah, they definitely need him to stay upright and healthy for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, so on to the next one. This is close to your heart, David, because this is the yearly matchup, the yearly cross-divisional rivalry between your Tennessee Volunteers, who are on a 2-game win streak, or they just
no, just one game. But okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, they won a game against a team that they were to lose to. And of course, you're going up against the juggernaut of Alabama. Alabama has absolutely destroyed Tennessee the past 2 seasons. Tennessee is a 34.5-point underdog right now. And, I mean, I'm going to say this. Yes, Alabama's going to win this game. I mean, everybody knows it. Everybody in Tennessee knows it. Everybody in Alabama knows it. And pretty much everybody else that watches college football around the country knows it. But I'll give you this much. I think Tennessee will go out there and fight and keep it close, at least manageable for the entire first half, and that they'll lose by less than 34.5 points.
Man, that's a hot take by you, because I think this game's going to be something around the area of like 56-6. This isn't going to be close. Yeah, they have a little momentum after Mississippi State, but Mississippi State is a really bad team, and Tennessee showed that. I mean, they won the game last week by running the ball the whole third and fourth quarter pretty much. So it depends on, is Brian Maurer going to play? That's the question right now. Jarrett Garantano did a good job managing the end of that Mississippi State game, and he took care of business. But he's not gonna give us a close game against Alabama. We're gonna need some momentum from freshmen, from Brian Maurer, to come in and to at least keep it respectable against Alabama. But we can skip over this game because it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna get ugly fast. I just don't see any way that the Vols keep this close.
All right, so I don't know, man. I think maybe a turnover too here. With fluky plays in the first half, Tennessee builds a little bit of momentum. Now, I think that no matter what happens,
Jeremy,
I wouldn't see less than a 30-point loss. I mean, I think 34.5 is right, probably right about right.
It's a 9:00 game in Alabama. They're gonna have their new LED lights or whatever going on. It's gonna be loud. And they're gonna beat the hell out of us. And I mean, Jeremy Pruitt said it today. He was asked about I don't know what the question was, but something about what's your game plan? And he brought up the coach in Arkansas that doesn't punt the ball. He onside kicks every time. And Jeremy Pruitt's like, maybe we should give that a try. Maybe we'll have a chance then. So
yeah.
I mean, Tua and those receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Ruggs, all those guys, man, they can be NFL teams, like NFL defenses, So they're too good. It's going to be a bad game.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're starting to talk me out of it now. So I don't know. I thought Tennessee would at least, keep it respectable, but you're saying it's going to be, would you say 52-6?
No, 56-6.
Oh, 56-6. All right.
Yeah, don't give them too much credit, man.
Okay. All right, so we'll move past that one. Now this game is only reason Georgia and Kentucky. This game I think is in Athens. And the only reason I think this is interesting is because Georgia's coming off of that loss, and we just, we spoke in depth about not overreacting to that loss if you're Georgia too much, but you do need to fix some things, obviously. But listen, Kentucky's not the Kentucky of last year, all right? They don't have Josh Allen or whatever his name was. They don't have Benny Snell anymore. Those guys are off to the NFL.
Right.
And so Kentucky, it right along, with a couple of other teams and the SEC have sort of taken this is a down year for them. And I think Georgia's going to come out mad. They're going to come out. They've been disrespected. They've been, reading the newspapers and Twitter and Facebook and seeing how everyone says how they suck. And a lot like Clemson did to Florida State, I think that's what you're going to see Georgia do to Kentucky.
Georgia's going to beat the living hell out of Kentucky, man. It's not going to be close again. Kentucky's got a wide receiver at quarterback right now in Lynn Bowden Jr. Their first string, second string, and third string quarterbacks are all hurt. So they're playing Lynn Bowden at quarterback right now. And, yeah, he had, I think, 3 touchdowns last week and a lot of running yards. But you got to be able to throw the ball against Georgia to beat Georgia. You can't beat them by playing their style and running the ball the whole game. That's not going to happen. Their defense is too good. I'm going to put this game somewhere around 42-14 Georgia, something like that. I just don't see it being close at all.
Okay, so the spread as of right now, or last time I checked it anyway, it was 24.5. So what you said, 42-14, what is that? 32. All right, so you think they'll cover that?
Yeah. Georgia covers.
Okay, I agree. I actually feel like that Georgia is going to not only beat Kentucky, but they're going to destroy them, like you said. I think it's going to be way over the spread. I'd say that they might score 45-7 or 10.
Yeah,
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And this is a huge game for Georgia to rebound, because if they go out there and they struggle against Kentucky, if they're even if they let Kentucky hang around for the first half, it's going to kill their confidence coming off of a loss. And this is a pivotal game for them. Even though it's against a bad team, they need to go out there and dominate just so they can get back on track. So
yeah. You let Tennessee hang around the first half of the game. You let South Carolina hang around in the first half of the game, and then they beat you. If you let this happen against Kentucky, man, that's going to kill the confidence. It could kill the confidence for the rest of the season. So they have to be really careful. They got to get out there and they got to start strong. James Coley has to open up that playbook or call Jim Chaney and get his playbook again, because this game is really important for Georgia.
Yeah, man, that's kind of weird. They downgraded that OC, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, all the Georgia fans didn't think so. They thought, hey, take Jim Chaney. He's terrible. All he wants to do is run the ball. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's working pretty good for us, I guess. Whatever.
All right, so moving on to the next game. This is one of the hottest teams in the country until last week, the Florida Gators, against the hottest team in the country for at least 1 week out of every year, the South Carolina Gamecocks. And I you know what? I didn't even write down these. I don't know what the spread is, but I know that Florida's favored. But I would imagine after last week that South Carolina is probably not as much of an underdog as they really should be. And this game is actually tricky, right? Because Florida has spent the entire first 5 weeks of the season up until last week really looking ahead to that LSU game, because that was the biggest game that they've had up until now. And they went in there and they got their rear ends handed to them on the road. Probably a very emotionally draining week for them. And then on the other hand, you have South Carolina, who's coming off a very emotional high of going into Athens and beating Georgia. So you have the two polar opposites of attitude here between these two teams within a 1 week period. So This is a dangerous game for Florida, I think, because at this point, Florida has everything to lose, right? And South Carolina doesn't have anything to lose. They're sort of like that guy at the bar who's, his dog died, his wife left him, and he lost his job all in the same day. He's got nothing to lose. He'll fight anybody and probably kick your ass. Yeah. So, it's a dangerous game. Now, having said that, I think that we may see the universe correct itself a little bit here. All right. I think that Florida's defense is just too much for South Carolina's offense to handle. And I don't even really know, maybe the condition of Helinski. Have you heard anything about him?
I think he had a sprain, and he should be good to go this weekend, I think. I'm not sure on that, but I'll check here in a minute. Like you said, man, this game, it could go either way. And if South Carolina goes out there and beats Florida right after beating Georgia, and then they come to Neyland Stadium and play Tennessee, I'm going to be scared to death because we need to beat South Carolina for our bowl hopes to stay alive. So I just don't see South Carolina winning the same. I think the Gators get back on track. Kyle Trask is a better quarterback than Ryan Helinski is. I don't know what Dan Mullen was thinking by starting Franks at the beginning of this year, because Kyle Trask is shown to be, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC just in the last couple weeks. And they kept it close against LSU for most of that game. I've got Florida winning this game. I've probably by 2 touchdowns.
Right. I think that's a fair thing. I wish I would have wrote down the spread for that one, but I feel like I feel the same way. So, imagine the chaos that would ensue in the East with Georgia losing, and then if Florida lost, last week, and then they somehow lost to South Carolina. You'd have Missouri and South Carolina would be leading the East, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It'd be Missouri and South Carolina.
God, they're already so delusional. I was on Twitter today, and they win one game, and they already literally one guy was saying, if we win out and we beat Clemson and we win the SEC, we can make it to the playoffs even with 2 losses. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. One win, and all of a sudden they're making the playoffs.
Right.
Unbelievable. But yeah, I agree though. I think Florida is they're just that much better, and I'd say 17 points is what I feel comfortable with. 17 to 21 points, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that'll wrap things up for this week, guys. Again, we really apologize for the technical difficulties. We will have video up next week for the second episode of Helmet to Helmet with Pete and David. Now, do you have any final thoughts, criticisms, or maybe just want to say, screw Alabama, or whatever you want to say? This is your time to say it.
Always, man. Screw Alabama. No, this has been fun, man, and I appreciate you doing this with me, and I look forward to see where this thing goes. So, go Vols.
Yeah, everybody make sure you go check out howardsrock.net. Make sure you go check out volunteerroadshow.com. If you want to get similar content to this, we do all kinds of podcasts and videos over on those sites. And we're this thing that me and David are doing for you here, this is sort of a preview to what you get over there. So if you like this, which I know you will, make sure you go and become a premium member over there, and you'll get all the football talk you can handle, especially if you're either a Clemson Tiger fan or a Volunteer fan. So thank you, David. I'll see you again next week, buddy. It's been a great show.
Absolutely, man. Have a good night.